this hair right now. I like it though. I like the knots and the messiness. It's fascinating. Thank you. I appreciate that. Why do I look so cute? I don't know. I feel cute. I guess that's enough for me. You know what? I'm gonna pull up my PDF on this because it's just easier. Because I got my laptop here so we can go through all this stuff. And if you are in the Cosmic Gang group, I hope you watched the video I posted of the moon disappearing. It's there. And when I repost this on YouTube, I'll have a clip of that in there with the link to the original video. And then some of the images, even from the books and stuff, will be in there. Okay. So, yesterday I could not sleep. Spirit was not finna let me sleep. Not for nothing. So, hold on. Start with our intro. Cosmic Gang. A whole lot of gang shit. Ninth dimension, no strange shit. We are in the motherfucking building. What is up, my people? What is going on with you? Hello. So let's get started. So it all started. And I'll be decoding more from Metropolis and how it's come up in pop culture and in what's going on in the world and how it's a certain codes in there of programming or an agenda. So yeah, sure. Cosmic Gang, just look for it, you'll find it, and I'll add you. I know I have a request sitting there, so you might have asked already, so I'll just make sure I look into it after we're done here. Okay. So it all started with me decoding Metropolis, and then I started getting into this deeper mystery around time. Literally yesterday, I was in a bad mood until I finished this at about 4 a.m. So that's why I always leave the Cash App. You guys appreciate the research. Just hit the Cash App, you know, support your girl. Not required. I actually would prefer people to purchase this, you know, book a session or something with me instead. So we're going to start with Enki and Enlil because clear my throat. That reminds me, I want to light some sage. I'll talk about this while I'm lighting this sage, but we're going to want to start with Enki and Enlil as the progenitors of humanity. So you guys, there's a secret about your DNA that you just don't know because you're not supposed to know. Oh, here it is. So the secret about your DNA is that you're a mix of different alien races, and it's not just white people, it's not just black people, it's all people. And it's just different alien races that mixed with the original DNA here. And we get stories of this from all over the planet. And when this was first conceived, it was seen as a way to create the perfect man, perfect woman, perfect being. And we were supposed to be created as the perfect being to interface with this planet. So I would say that it was in no way intended to be malevolent, but that it eventually turned to that because we have these very immature gods that showed up. That sage feels good. Oh, feels good for my heart and soul. Here you go, baby. I know you want some of this sage. Okay. So anyway, oh, to be a woman. It's wonderful. So anyway, the whole Enki and Enlil thing is so interesting because it's really holding a key. And some people will be, you know, Team Enki. Some people will be, well, very few people are Team Enlil because Enlil's sort of the protagonist. He's the one that's like, nah, these beings are unevolved. They're not shit. They don't deserve anything. Like the reptilians, yes, how the reptilians invaded Lyria. But the reptilians were actually, from from what I know from this book, I've been telling y'all to get it. Earth, Palladian keys to humanity or something like that. But I have it in here too. Good evening, Ashley. Hello. So when we read that book, because that book is really a channel, and I love channeled books to a certain extent. I mean, you got to understand that an entity that's channeling is just a person. So you have to understand that various ET races or multidimensional races or beings are just people. They're you. They're me. They're us. The aliens are us. It's really, and a lot of them had seeded their own people onto this planet for a specific purpose. I think that there's more benevolent, not that there's more, but I think the benevolent forces are stronger than the malevolent ones. But we have to look deeper too at the concept of duality and what we're going to do with that, because like I actually wrote it here. I said specifically Enki perhaps working with the reptilians, them being master geneticists, also has been speculated that other ETs excited about Project Earth volunteered their DNA for this undertaking. So our DNA was, hey Joe, so our DNA essentially was tinkered with. At first in a more positive way where we would, and you know, you have to question that too, because I had a vision, I asked spirit, you know, I went in meditation, I went to my higher self, I said, can you take me back to when, and I don't know if it's my DNA or if it's just in the collective consciousness, but I was able to perceive when these races first came here and what it actually felt like, and we felt like very innocent little girls, for lack of a better term. It was more very like innocent feminine energy, and that's probably why that energy is so violated so much on this planet and treated with such sexual perversion and disregard, because even a woman that's holding an innocent childlike energy would it almost like holds a sort of deliciousness, like a sort of pure light for these ET beings who want, and I'm going to get into what Archons are and how they're AI. And if you guys don't know about the channel on YouTube, Aurora Rising Phoenix, she does these really amazing regressions where she helps people with their implants. And so I don't do regressions, I do more channeling, and then I know how to do energy work. But I love her regressions, and I would love to learn how to do those regressions as well. They're just so amazing. I'm just so used to doing the work myself, you know what I mean? Like, and she employs certain beings to help her, and then also infuses her own energy. She's incredible. Really incredible. But either way, we're all here with the same purpose of assisting other people in their healing at this time. Because the reintegration of the soul is what's really going to matter most. Now, time is a jealously guarded secret. We have to get, now we know that our DNA was messed with. Now what happened was we originally had the 12 strand, I call it etheric DNA. Hello, Red Man. I called the 12, we originally had the 12 strand sort of etheric DNA. And our lifespans were too long, we were learning too much, we weren't being good slaves. So, and we were figuring too much out, being too much in our power, so our DNA was fragmented. That's the story loosely that I'm getting. I need to even do more research on the origins of man, but that seems to be what it's coming out as. And let me see. I'm just going to go through my notes. We mustn't any longer, yeah, that's what I said. We mustn't any longer see these beings as gods, but rather individuals. Ooh, who's sending me some bad vibes? Because my sage just started going crazy on the camera. Let me see. So, So, Earth is actually a sort of living library. That's what I'm understanding from this book I've been reading. But you sort of know that anyway. And that's why it's not hard to tap into the Akashic records. And something really special about Earth that a lot of people don't understand is that not every planet produces its own life as easily as Earth does, because Earth is one of the only planets that's a living being. Now let's see, I'm gonna go down a little bit. Yeah, so at this time we're going to want to be reintegrating our 12-strand etheric DNA. You can do that through meditation, through toning. So, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Simple. If you know nothing else, you know that. And then you can connect with the elements. So, for example, if I right now was going to connect with the element of air, because air is all around us, right? That's an example of toning. And you can bring it deeper, and you can go up higher, and you can just find your own way to do it that suits you. This is a completely individualized process, but toning is something that allows us to reintegrate our DNA, and the clues to do that. And you know, when I look at the Osirian drama, where he's scattered right into 12 pieces, and Isis puts him back together, it's really showing how it's going to take our emotion, our compassion, and our feminine energy to sort of put ourselves back together again, like Humpty Dumpty, you know, fell off the wall and shattered into a million pieces, and it takes love and compassion to come back together again. Let's see. Now, within a certain limitation, because, and I say that to this regard, is that Archons and entities that wish to mine your soul, you know, they keep saying that they came here to mine gold and this and that, but first of all, I think they just got sent here by elder gods that were like, hey, just go down to Earth for a while. Earth supposedly was won in a war. We spoke like this about this in the last video, which is like inherently inhumane to think of life, even on a larger scale, on a galactic scale, as something that can just be easily bought and sold. And also too, even when you have higher technology, war, the vibration of war still being there is showing you that that's not the true ascension. So this ascension into technology is really something that we're going to want to be watching out for at this time, because the true ascension is not one of technology. It's a realizing our personal power and the power within, and then enlivening that and emboldening that in others. Like, it's my individuality, it's your individuality, and then it's realizing that we both come from the same source, expressing itself in a different way. And then respecting and honoring and loving that in each other. Because if I love you better, then I can love me better, and then we can be one and we can be whole. So, yeah. And like I said, there's a spiritual warrior aspect to it, where you have to use your discernment, because certain beings, they just want to take you over. And they just want you to be passive. They want you to not fight back or say no, or at least use your voice to be like no. So it's really important to use your discernment when you're working with especially higher dimensional beings. A lot of times I will command them to, you can command them to tell you their name or show you who they are, and you'll feel it. You know what I mean? And we're taught not to command, not to demand. That's rude. It's not rude. It's, you're protecting yourself. So now with the artificial fusion of some of our DNA chromosomes is an anomaly. And science in the past has used this as a clue as to how we evolved from monkeys, which it doesn't mean anything. And then there's some other theories out now in 2020, because the monkey thing sort of fell apart. People are like, we're not from monkeys, we don't feel like that's true, whatever. So now they're coming up with new theories. But the thing is, is that staring you right in the face, and I'll put these pictures up, staring you right in the face is a blatant artificial fusion of the second and fourth chromosomes, and then the third missing. So, and I believe that at this time, if feeling into it, feeling into that energy, I believe at this time that this is even being healed and rebuilt, and perhaps even built and mutated into something better than what we would have had before. And we're going to have more access to the DNA and to restructure it the way we want. But if we're going to go into a space of having that kind of power, we have to understand the responsibility that comes with that power. So looking at that already had me like, And then looking at the reasoning for it, that really doesn't give like, it doesn't really give like a good reason. And then here I talked about toning, and then the movie Metropolis from 1927. Good movie, lots of code. Like code you wouldn't even see. Like, for example, they have the slave race. I think that we were made to believe that we were slaves. I really do. And I think that we were so much like children that if another being came and had all this powers and stuff, we weren't really jealous. We were like, we admired it. And they took our admiration and sort of forced us into worship. Because what I'm hearing now, and I have to see these old cuneiform tablets myself, is that no gold mining is ever mentioned. So if no gold mining is ever mentioned, it made me go deeper in my mind, like, well, what could that mean then? Then I thought of the term, and it's kind of silly, and it's like, where does this even connect? But I thought of the term, you know, when you say someone has a heart of gold, what does that mean? Gold's pretty heavy. So if you want the heart to be light as a feather, gold probably is not the frequency you want to be on. But aside from me going everywhere with it, I was like, well, maybe the gold, right? The true gold, the true wealth, the true riches of the planet is in our heart. And I know that the seat of the soul is not the pineal gland, it's in the heart. It's right behind the heart chakra. That's where our soul comes in to our body. There's 3 different ways we can interface with our own higher self and our soul and bring more of that energy into our bodies, however. But the more that I thought about this, the more I was like, maybe the gold is us. Maybe like we were the gold, our planet, this etheric energy that these entities just some of them can't understand. And like how we hear about the Greys, that the Greys are from a future timeline, I want to say they're probably a small subset of humans. I don't believe all humans or all beings from this planet went that way, where they lost the capacity. And then when we get into what Archons are, and we're going to speak more about this later because I watched the movie Dark City. That movie plus this movie, Metropolis from 1927, give us really big clues into what Archons are. And then there's... Whoa, that was weird. It just went out and came back like really quick. So we have breaking out of the circles of time. So in the beginning of the movie, when we look at the workers, they're moving these clocks. But the clocks only have 10 hours on them. And then when we look at the clock of the elites, it has 24 hours. So I was like, that's so weird. And it's a smaller clock. But the clock of the common man, woman, they call them the hands because they're the ones that built the city. They're the hands. And this is a big occult thing for them to, you know, teach their children a lesson about being the heart in between the brain and the hands. And that, like, they have to bridge the gap with the media. But that's, like, a whole nother thing. And I was like, that is so weird. And then in the movie Dark City, I noticed that it starts off with a clock also. And I was like, man, what is with these clocks? Dark City, midnight, represents the time when everyone gets put to sleep and their memories get scrambled by these Archons. Yep. We are the gold. Said that in my video channel a while ago. Our souls are the gold. If you can get people to reincarnate through ignorance, you Yeah, because I was like, these cuneiform tablets never mention, and then I have to decode the whole Tower of Babel thing, so I'll do that in the future. We'll be doing the Whore of Babylon archetype. We'll be decoding that, and then I'll be decoding the Tower of Babel also. So I was like, that's so weird, 2 versions of the clock. So that was giving me a clue. Okay, if this movie, that's an occult movie, that was meant for the elite, it really wasn't supposed to come out to the public the way that it did. Alas, it's out anyway. It's from and then you have a lot of celebrities and stuff that were impersonating or garnering the energy of the false Maria. So she's like a fake AI woman that's made like a robot, like an android. So and Moloch is never mentioned again, but in the beginning of Metropolis in 1927, this guy sees this woman, Maria, the real Maria, and he's one of the elites, and he just falls in love with her, and she's with all the children. The weird thing is, when he goes to the underworld, or the worker city, where they're the ones that feed energy into the machines and stuff, what ends up happening is that he sees all the children with these ancient gods, and it says Moloch, but you never see Moloch again. Like, he has this whole vision of the kids and some of the workers getting sacrificed to Moloch. So what's that telling us also about these jobs, about these corporations? And then I put in the group a clip from the movie Branded, where it's showing you these disgusting, like, parasitic entities that are sucking the life out of us and creating these bigger and bigger entities connected in with these corporations. So that's something that's going on in a lower astral plane. So Moloch, the god who eats children. And we also have Kronos, but we also have the goddess Nut. And nobody wants to talk about their divine ancient Egyptian deities, right? But Nut eats her children. Interesting. And then as a punishment, but who punishes her? Right? She's supposed to be the sky goddess. She's supposed to represent the primordial, the all. That means that she's not primordial, that there is a false feminine here. And I do not believe, because they didn't have, till later Egypt, there was never a moon goddess. So I don't believe that at that time there was a moon yet. That's why maybe it was always solar worship, because there was no moon. And then they went and the god Geb represents the earth. So it's just this weird thing. Like, is it the earth, or is it the spirit of air? Is it like the firmament and the waters? Like, what is this whole dynamic, when intuitively for us, we look at the earth as our mother? Hell, we look at the sky as a sort of mothering entity, or like the void, the chaos aspect of the woman. So it's just kind of like a lot of questions, no answers. So questions are always good, because then it gives me something else to look into. So before Kronos, right, who represents the god of time, connected with Saturn, was Nut, who ate her children. So, and these later deities, a lot of goddesses were perverted into male deities. You have to understand that. And they were all, really, the further back you go, they're all goddesses. And when we even go further back with the Enki and Enlil story, we find out that a lot of the gods that came here, they like cherished the women on this planet, and they would fight over the feminine. They would literally fight like which of these ETs is going to have this woman as like their their wife, or their consort, so, or their counterpart. Because and when you go back, you see them always showing up in pairs, male, female, because they're not really gods, they're beings, they're people like us. But there was this whole other principle in the ancient world of a very balanced concept of masculine and feminine that we just don't see today. And I was like, man, there's something else going on here. Like, these beings knew something about that energy that we're just missing now, and that people are just not understanding. I think that the moon was, well, honestly, we were probably told that, the waters on the earth are raging. Probably Enlil put it, because he's a douchebag. But He just is. They were probably like, oh, the waters on Earth, they're unstable, they're raging, because the water's connected with the feminine principle on Earth. So it wasn't the moon that ever regulated the waters, it was the women. It was the women and then the men that could garner their own feminine energy. And then, you know, there were beings that were androgynous too at one point. So, I mean, we had a lot of mix of a lot of things going on at one time. And time, and that's the thing, is that time isn't linear. It's more of a frequency, and we're going to get into that because that's one of the secrets that they're not telling us about time. That's why it's so important to get into this. So I was like, man, what is with these stopwatches? And then when you see a stopwatch in a movie, you notice that there's the big watch with the 12, and then there's the smaller one that represents more time. So it's like, how are these beings basically telling us, like, hey, we have a different system of time, or we have more time than you? Like, what the fuck is that about? Like, has this aspect of time been programmed so hard into our subconscious that it's now programming that's running through our DNA? And I would argue yes. I would argue that there is no such concept as linear time, more than we just use it as a mechanism to serve us. And okay. I said this may be fantasy of later Egypt or stories told about with the Newt and Geb thing. I was like, I don't know, this is fucking weird. Oh, so the thing is with this with Metropolis is that basically Moloch is never mentioned again, which I found very odd. But that's basically the underlying theme, is that the machine, the energy put into the machine, is essentially and I never thought about that. So the energy put into the machines is feeding these entities. It's like feeding, that's the higher entity that the Father is serving. That's why the Father has so much authority in Metropolis. But his son is like a Christ figure, but it's like still negative, because it's like, wait, the people, and it shows the regular people as just emotional and erratic and morons. Like, you're all emotional morons. You can't think. You just go do everything based off emotion with no logic. It was so disrespectful. And I'm tired of people, just regular people, being depicted that way, because if we keep depicting, and this is from 1927, so it was just so obvious. They really were very obvious, even with their occult stuff back then. But it was a message to the elites for them to create something, a mediator, something in the middle, because they notice that eventually people start to rebel when they feel too oppressed. So we need something in the middle to sort of keep the peace, or to be the heart, the meeting place of the regular people. And so it's like, okay, another layer of programming. Okay, so in ancient Egypt, a clue we get is about something, and I got this from the book, The Egypt Code. I believe it's from Robert Duvall. I'm literally seeing the cover in my head. That is so weird. But, so he talks about this concept of first time, that here in the West, as much as people are in Egypt, we never hear about this concept called first time. First time is this amazing and I started thinking about this because I was reading the Orion, maybe I was reading the Giza Prophecy. Yeah, I wasn't reading the Orion Mysteries yet. That's my next one. But I was reading the Giza Prophecy, and I remember seeing these pictures of the Great Pyramid with the two other ones, and they started talking about how they're slightly misaligned from Orion's belt. And I was like, what if this is like a key or a code, and you unlock a certain frequency when you change the reality to a certain frequency, like this code that's locked becomes unlocked. Like when the alignment happens, it's not because it's time, it's because, well, it is because it's time technically, but it's because actually to unlock the codes of time has something more to do with these codes of frequency and vibration that we put out. That it actually has nothing to do with linear time, but time is a code that is based on the resonance of our frequency collectively on the planet and individually, because I may experience a perfect alignment with those pyramids. And say I lived over there. I live my life every day. I look perfectly aligned. But there's a time, and my hypothesis is that the way that in the Memphite region, especially with the Great Pyramids and the Red Pyramid specifically, there is a time, like there's like a time code, or like a code about time that's locked. And when we get our frequency right on the planet, we will unlock a certain energy, a certain frequency, and that's going to be now available to everyone. So that's what I think the true nature of time is. But we're going to get way deeper into it and like, how the fuck do we do this now that we know that this is a thing? So first time is what the ancient Egyptians go by. And this concept of first time is a time when the earth and the stars were perfectly aligned. And then we also have the stretching ceremony that a lot of people hear. And once again, you have to read this stuff to know about these things. But the ancient Egyptian pharaohs did a stretching ceremony, and a high priestess that would be embodying the goddess Seshet. Sort of seemed like she was like a record keeper. They said she was the archetype of the modern day librarian. But they would do this stretching ceremony, and the people literally believed that the way the ceremony went and how and there's very little details as to what happened. Obviously, these are some of the pharaoh's rites, but exactly what happens in that ceremony, they believe would be the destiny. The pharaoh, being the forefront, they considered that the destiny of the region. They knew a secret that we lost today, though. And this is dealing with frequency, and this is once again dealing with time. This is why us, and we don't really need leaders anymore. That this is an outdated concept. Back then it made more sense because they were more on a collective frequency, but they were still infringed upon and manipulated too. We have to understand that when we get to ancient Egypt, that was still a falling. We were still in a space of falling. We weren't really at our top. It was still a fallen state. But when we get into this stretching ceremony, literally what happened, however they decided what the fate of Egypt was going to be, it was decided in that ceremony, and everybody believed in it, and exactly what was prophesied, I suppose it typically happened. I mean, I have to suppose it if people believed in it so much. I'm like, dang, they were really like into this thing. Like this was a thing for them. It wasn't like, oh yeah, it's just a rite, it's just a ceremony. Now, the thing that we lost in America is, what do you think happens when you change the frequency of the presidency that everybody's connecting their energy in with every 8 years or every 4 years? It's going to change the frequency and promote a state of chaos. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if you don't change out who the president is, then you get a stagnation, and you get like in Europe with the fucking with their fucking kings and queens and shit. There's a big stagnation on that energy. So it's a delicate balance. And I would say that if you had a king or queen or an emperor or empress that was deeply connected with their people and dealing with a level of alignment that we don't know of today, then it would make perfect sense. And then if the people having full disclosure of what goes on, being perfectly aware that their energy is intimately connected with the energy of the leaders that they believe in. That's the whole thing. So yeah, that's something else that we have to think about too. And we're going to have to do some brainstorming. I mean, is personal sovereignty preferred at this time? Do we want an agreed upon system with no leaders? Do we want, it's really like, what do we want? What do we want moving forward? Do we want no system? I don't think a system is going to be a thing in the future, especially now with all these people walking around like fucking mutants and shit, and fucking Superman, Superwoman. You walk up the street, motherfuckers are flying with a fucking with fucking Taco Bell in their hand, like, yo, son, what's good? Like, I got Hennessy, weed, Taco Bell, and I'm flying, bitch. What's up? Like, I mean, hey, it could happen. You never know. The world is a fucking weird place. Okay, so moving on. Okay. Clocks. Yeah, the clocks from the movie Dark City, from 1998. I said the gatekeepers are Archons who have control over people over time and mess with people's memories, scrambling them every night. Yeah, and it was set up that way on purpose. So it's so much to think about. I mean, it's such a multi-dimensional sort of thing that you really have to like be like, damn, what do I want? Think about the collective, but also think about what do you want? Like, what will work for me for my future? Because how you live your life inspires others to live their lives in a freer way. So we're going to come back to what Archons are, because they were introduced in 1927 in Metropolis as mysterious. Now, these are agents. I call them agents of Saturn. But first, we're going to talk about the White Rabbit. What the fuck is the White Rabbit? We saw it in the Matrix. The Matrix has you. Follow the White Rabbit. Neo, knock knock. And then you remember the girl with the white rabbit on her shoulder. And then we have Alice in Wonderland follows the white rabbit down the rabbit hole that has a bunch of fucking weird looking clocks. And there's like this disillusion of time. So I was like, And then and the Archons in Dark City are scrambling people's memory and making them forget time. So some of this also has to do with timeline jumping. Something that I want to get into. I've had deja vu is an aspect of timeline jumping or timeline remembrance. Like when you're like, damn, I already did this. That's remembering a specific timeline that already happened. It's like it's remembering the future as the past. That's the best way I can, because you've already experienced it. It's a very familiar energy. It's also, yeah, Alice in Wonderland. Well, who was I talking about? That's what I was talking about, Alice in Wonderland. When Alice falls down the rabbit hole, yeah. Also, timeline jumping. I spoke about this in this PDF. I made the PDF to organize my thoughts because I know I go all over the place with this stuff. I talked about how, basically I have two experiences that I vividly remember a different memory. But I have memory of both memories, like the now timeline I'm in and the old timeline. And it'll be little things, something as simple as a scratch on the wall that you know the day that it happened. You remember when you dropped your keys, or turned with some books in your hand and it made a scrape or whatever. But then all of a sudden that scratch just isn't there, or it's in a different location, or it looks different, or you remember stopping up a plug, or just doing something. You remember having an argument with someone, but then the conversation, when it happens again, it turns out that there was no argument, that it was a beautiful conversation that actually happened to me. So these are clues. Deja vu is the beginning of that, and the more that we meditate and the more that we get into our spirituality, we could start looking into the clues of reality. These are real clues that something else is fucking going on here. And reality is actually multidimensional, and you can, and it's telling you too that you can actively shift your timelines. Interesting. In a real way. And if you can be perceptive, if you can notice the little things, you can absolutely shift your timelines. And like with that argument where I was on the phone with someone and I remember the old timeline, I had an argument with them, but the new timeline, I had a very pleasant conversation. I was working on, right before that, meditating and feeling a different frequency in my life. So that was my clue that I did it, and I figured out how to shift and jump timelines. Ah, amazing. And it all has to do with just frequency and feeling and how you feel and maintaining that frequency consistently. Time is not linear. Time is not linear. It can be perceived as linear for ease, but it's not linear. And that's also why you have so many ancient civilizations that seem to have come and gone in an instant. Or, oh, there was one instance, dang, I wish I had the page to that, but there was one instance in archaeology where they couldn't figure out if this civilization or if this specific event or aspect of some civilization lasted 1 day or 1,000 years. They literally couldn't figure it out. They're like, some stuff is telling us that this only lasted a day. Some stuff is telling us that it lasted 1,000 years. And I'll find where I read it if I can and put it up on YouTube, but it was fascinating to me. So I'm like, a day and 1,000 years could literally be the same thing, depending on the frequency you're on, right? So if I'm dealing with a faster frequency, I may experience 1,000 years in 1 day. Have you ever noticed that some days feels like it's 2 or 3 days long, and then other days you're like, I just woke up, how is it nighttime already? Like, it's like some interesting stuff that's happening. And then now it's like, okay, now that we know that these things are happening, how do we navigate this new time? And it's through your frequency. Time is not, time being a linear thing will be a thing of the past in the future and in the now. Honestly, in the now, it's becoming a thing of the past. But time is going to be something that you navigate with your frequency, not something that you experience as like in a movie, how you have one scene that comes after the other like this, or like a comic strip, it's one after the other. You won't experience it that way. It'll be more like this. It'll be more like this, and then the center point is you. Okay, so the white rabbit. So the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland seems to be very, very concerned about time. He's always concerned about his time running out. So when I looked into white rabbits, I was like, what is a white rabbit? You know, all these fake spiritual pages and all these fake new agers are like, oh, it represents purity and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, genetically, what the fuck is a white rabbit? A white rabbit is an albino. And so it doesn't have any melanin, and it doesn't have any like life force. So the white rabbit being concerned about time would make sense, because if that rabbit can't get a form of substance, it literally runs out of time and its physical body disintegrates, and it doesn't have enough soul force energy to maintain that frequency in that body. So the white rabbit, aka the Archon, at this time is a being that is wanting to manipulate, control, or rule over time. So while Alice has the ability to experience timelessness and the dissolution of time, even though it's in an alternate reality, we see the white rabbit. And so then that's also too telling you that some aspects of the Matrix were a psyop, to make you hate this place. I've questioned that movie over and over again, and all these people like, oh, the Matrix is so amazing, and I'm like, no, it's supposed to make you hate this place so that you give up your birthright, so that you're in a lower state, so that you can get taken over by archonic energies, so that you can get your energy, your soul force energy drained from you. And we're going to get into a vision that I had of when the Archons actually came here, because I asked the Great Mother, I'm like, can you show me when they came here? And I just had a vision about it. So we'll get into that in a second too. And I did say here that I'm not trying to disparage anyone who has albinoism or lighter features or whatever, because I think souls are able to transcend the physical body, and we pick our vehicles for a specific purpose, or just for experience, that we want to experience what it is to be at that polarity. So this is not a disparaging of that. It's actually just breaking down these actual symbolisms to see what they mean. There is no time. What would be our conversation then? Conversations are circles. The creators construct to keep us in this. What would be conversation or circles? Conversations, true conversations, exist in a state of timelessness, where you realize that you don't know how much time has passed because you're in the moment. There's no time. So I said, I do believe albino rabbits denote not having a soul or lacking a soul from source. Perhaps this is why this is the symbol that's used, denoting some truth that the rabbits, being genetically engineered, are representing archons or genetically manipulated life forms. This is perhaps why some truth put forth by this symbol as why there's some truth put forth by this symbol as a representation of an archonic energy in more modern times, denoting the loss of a soul, aka artificial intelligence, completely archonic, AI. And then I went into just a little bit about what the Queen of Hearts is, and it's funny because I found a picture where she's like holding a flower in one hand and a dagger in the other. And then I found this astrologer's blog, and they had their Venus squaring Saturn, and I was like, that's the Queen of Hearts. And it was like the real Queen of Hearts, Venus squaring Saturn, and I was like, this makes so much fucking sense. Because if Venus is squaring Saturn here, I put it here, I said Venus the evening star, I said the Queen of Hearts is supposed to represent Venus the evening star, being more in alignment with service to others and loving to others. Now when this is not balanced, she may become more service to self, or be very like that diva sort of, you know, energy, or that gold digger sort of energy. Now I said when we see the inversion of these principles, we can look into astrology, because it's like, how is this white rabbit serving, the Archon serving the Queen of Hearts? And then I thought about how reptilians typically are under a matriarchal system where they serve a queen. So connections. And I was like, this may be perhaps a Venus that is somehow falling in alignment under Saturn or squaring Saturn. So it's also telling you that Anu or Enlil is somehow connected with this planet Saturn. Whether they put it there, whether they created the rings around Saturn, all that can be debated. So I said Venus squaring Saturn can be a Venus that is desperately in need of love and has a deep need for validation. This is an individual that may hate themselves. Archons do hate themselves, and I'll tell you about that in a second. I said I looked to the stars in astrology for this because it's what makes the most sense when comparing what kind of expression this would be, like as a personality. I said the personality expressed is matching the Queen of Hearts. This personality expressed with so now we know that the Queen of Hearts is squaring Saturn. So the Queen of Hearts is having, I feel like it's really a service to Saturn. That's my intuition. But the fact that they made her personality that way, and it's just like, it's so scattered, like you have to really be divergent to figure this stuff out, because now you have to think about astrology and be like, well, Venus squaring Saturn person acts like this. So that's the true Queen of Hearts that's out of alignment, not compassionate and loving and has those beautiful traits, but actually it's an inversion of those traits. And then I said that's an archonic or reptilian queen. Now we're going to get into the archons. I put edge of the universe and the day archons came here. I said now, as I was thinking about archons, I got tired and took a short nap. I don't know, some of my naps are naps and some of my naps are like visions. I was given a vision by the Great Mother in my dream. I could see the edge of our universe, and I saw the Archons in their big dark gray ships, like the ones in Star Trek, penetrating the edge of this galaxy. And I saw the galaxy like a donut that had like this force field, kind of like the way your toroidal, I always fucked it up, toroidal like aura, how your aura looks, how you can bring energy in or you can go out, but it looks kind of like a donut. And I saw them like penetrating the edge of the galaxy. It was so fucking weird to see, or the edge of the universe. It was a weird thing to see, but I was just watching, and I was like, and I said they came here, and then I started getting into how they're feeling. So they came here because they were desperate and had killed their universe. So their universe became a dying universe because they got so into this AI, they started mining their own souls. So they started mining and perverting their own energy, their own soul energy, like just sucking it dry, using it for all this AI technology, to the point that it actually they're so mad right now that I'm talking about this. I can feel them like, no, why are you telling them? They started like crumbling, like you know, if you can smell souls, if you have the gift to smell souls, you'll talk about that. If you can smell souls, sometimes some people smell like rotting meat, like when they don't have a soul, or when their soul's basically like completely taken over, kicked out of their body, and it's replaced with like an AI, like an archonic soul or reptilian soul that's negative. Because some reptilians are positive. So you have to just use your discernment. But like dragons are reptilians, but they're, well, depending on the dragon, dragons can be very wise, you know, wise as serpents. That's a reptilian concept. But that you got the positive side, and then you have the negative side. So it's just using your discernment. So the people who smell kind of like rotting souls, or they smell like they're rotting because their souls are so polluted, they're very connected in with archonic energies. And that's how the Archons, it almost felt like they were rotting on the inside from what I could see. And that they were rotting from the inside out, and their race was starting to fail because they were almost out of that soul force energy. They just overused and abused their own energy to the point that it was all used up. And that's why some of these greys, and they call them Wendigo in Australia back in the day, but that's why a lot of them are coming back, and it's just not fair. I don't care if it's your past self. Don't mine their DNA so that you can save yourself. Deal with the consequences of your actions. At least ask people consciously if it's okay. Don't just take them. You know what I mean? That's not fair. That's a huge infringement, and it causes a lot of psychological issues for a lot of people later on in life. It's just not fair. So the Archons were, they're vile and disgusting creatures. They really are vile. They're the essence is very vile. Like if you ever get around a really hateful person with a soul, but their whole soul, so they have that soul force behind it, but their whole soul is filled of nothing but putrefaction and hate, is more nauseating than being around somebody who maybe has a weaker soul or a more fragmented soul. It's not, you know, if it's a little fragmented, they're hating, like, whatever. But, I mean, when someone's really got a lot of their soul there, but it's all taken over and shit, and they have a lot of energy behind it, it is some of the most disgusting vibrations that I've dealt with. Like, I literally have to, like, walk away. Like, I'm like, okay, I gotta get the fuck away from this person. So, the state that they find themselves in, and this is why they're getting, like, they get, like, upset when I talk about it. The state that they find themselves in is embarrassing to them because they thought they were so superior using this AI technology, mining their souls. Like the Archons thought they were superior, and then they didn't realize that they were using up so much energy that they were actually killing their race, and they were killing their connectedness to source, and they were sort of cutting themselves off from an infinite source of energy and from love. Like the way humans have been it's not humans though, because you and I every day don't destroy Earth's natural resources. We nourish the Earth with our frequency. We have to stop blaming ourselves. We're not children anymore. It's not us. It's the construct that we find ourselves in. If we want to change the construct, we need to change ourselves. We need to change ourselves. We need to start saying no. We need to start taking our power back. We need to find different ways for ourselves. That's where our responsibility comes in, as I see that this, instead of being complacent in a system, change the system from within, change yourself. and the system changes. But we can no longer blame ourselves. Like, we're not children anymore. We don't need to blame ourselves for the system that we find ourselves in. When we're cut off from cleaner technologies, better informations, connectedness with Earth, we're cut off from all these things. And then, like lost children, we blame ourselves for being cut off. That's not fair to our souls. We don't need to do that anymore. We can stop. We can stop. We are the gods now. Plain and simple. We are the gods now. Worship yourself. Put yourself on a pedestal, and don't use your negative ego. Use ego in the true sense of the term. It's your individuality. Ego simply means I. If you look it up in Latin, the Latin word ego just means I. That's it. It's I. I am that I am. It's I. That's it. It's your individuality. It's a beautiful thing. Be an individual. So the Archons are embarrassed because they can feel how vile and disgusting that their energy is. And then now they have to sort of like be parasitic and feed off other universes. And they feed off universes and destroy them. So they're like embarrassed that they have to do that. But at the same time, it's the only way that they know to be alive. So sort of like, you ever had a cousin or a brother, sister, a friend that was always caught up in this way of thinking, and no matter how many times you showed them that there's a different way, they would never listen to you? That's kind of like what a lot of these, like with clients, when I remove reptilian DNA implants, when we transmute that energy, a lot of times I find that the reptilian ancestry, once you present them with the opportunity to ascend, they take it. They take it. I've actually cried during some of these, but they take the opportunity to ascend, and they go into the love light frequency of source, and they go into a higher dimension. But they don't, before that, they're like a little nervous about it. They don't know if they want to. They get kind of scared. But once they're presented with the opportunity, once they are given empirical proof that there's another way, a lot of entities will choose ascension. Archons are a little different because they're AI more or less. They don't really have any soul force energy left because they abuse their own souls so much. So it's a weird area. So they're desperate to be saved, no matter how vile they are. They so desperately want to be loved, and that's true. And that's also why a lot of times when an Archon bonds with a host, like you have a certain person that maybe there's a certain way that they are, or that you know is negative, but they'll keep wanting to be that way. I remember one time there was this girl, and I'm talking to her, and I was like, you have an attachment. And she didn't know about any of this stuff, so I started doing energy. I was like, I'm just gonna remove it for you. She was like, she was like, okay, whatever. So I started working on it, and I started pulling it out. She's like, no, stop, and like literally gets up and walks away. She was so scared. So the thing is that some people are bonded with their attachments, and because they're so bonded with their attachments, they're just not ready on a soul level to give them up. I mean, maybe they can pull that Archon in and make it part of their soul. I have no idea. I don't know. Anything's possible, right? As far as that goes, I know I don't want those motherfuckers on me. I'm straight. Y'all, I'm cool. Y'all can get transmuted back to source. You and all your fake AI technology. So I know that they want desperately to be loved, and that's also why sometimes they'll choose a host and stay with them. And then they'll, anything that would remove them from them would cause the person to act very violent. And sometimes we call these demons or damians, but damians, the lower dimensional creatures that came in with blood sacrifice, ended up taking over a lot of the Anunnaki, which is, Anu, Enlil, Enki, their descendants. It wasn't them, it was their descendants, because they've been gone a long time. Started taking over their descendants. I don't know who was standing behind me, but I felt it, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And so I know that there's a part that I need to do a little more research on as far as that goes, because for some reason, when these blood sacrifices started happening, because they weren't natural, and then the people were tricked by beings that they thought were benevolent like the earlier ones, because they had the same powers, so we got kind of tricked into doing blood sacrifices, and then it ended up opening up these very, very perverted portals for these strange entities. So I have to get more into what is that? Because that's a key to the puzzle. But the thing is, you think you're such a powerful being, and you end up getting fucking taken over by one of these entities too. I remember I had a client one time that they had a very high dimensional entity that was literally living in their brain, and I had to pull it out, and it was like a gray plasma. It was a plasmic sort of entity. So, I mean, a lot of entities that you wouldn't even know about are existing on a lot of dimensions. Remember, these are just people. They're just like you. So use your discernment, just like you would any person you meet on the street. Okay. I said it seemed fated. I said we must not allow this pitiful aspect of them, because the Archons do want desperately to be loved. We must not allow this pitiful aspect of them to allow them to drain our almost endless, because the more we're connecting with Source, the more endless our energy becomes. Soul force energy given to us by the divine. And we're typically a peaceful, passive sort of people that just want to relax and like have fun and stuff. We're not really warlike like we've been led to believe. That was these other entities. We have some of their DNA in us, but we're still the human soul, searching for the human soul, searching for the soul. These beings that are lost their emotion and deal more with logic, they are fascinated by the soul. They are fascinated by emotion. It's one of our most powerful weapons, and never forget that. So I figured out who we are here on Earth. And I have it right here. I said, it seems fated the Archons would end up here. Humans on Earth, this is what we are the keepers of destinies. According to the Great Mother, this is what I learned in my channel with her. We have the power to change destiny. And then I thought about how much we love the story. Everybody loves the story of the underdog. Everybody loves the story of the guy that was a girl that was like put down and like overcomes. And then I've been saying for the last like year or so, like, you don't have a destiny, you create one. Imagine that. We don't even know who we are. Master of destinies? We're the masters of destinies. Not just one destiny, destinies. That's how it was said to me. Not destiny, destinies. We have the power to change destiny. Our destiny and the destiny of others. That's why they have to do... That's why these forces that want to manipulate our energy and continue to mine our soul force energy have to work so hard on so many, try to hit us on so many different levels, because once we realize what we are, what could stop us? You are literally just being incarnated here, even if you're an ET soul, even if you're a star seed, whatever it is, this incarnation gives you the ability to tap into the power to change destiny. What's a greater gift than that? Nobody said it's going to be easy, but it's a huge gift to know that, like, wow, I'm literally created to change destiny, to change fate. My fate and the fate of others, the fate of galaxies. You know what I mean? Plus the Earth herself and us as in the human body as an instrument are like these amazing like libraries of information. And the more that we tap in with the elements in Earth, the more that we can open her secrets up and learn what's the code. You know what I mean? What is going on? And another language of time, another secret language of time is the language of synchronicity. That's one of the big ones too that's kept from your true synchronicities, not the ones that you get on the internet all day, but it's getting this weird intuition about something that you see and then following your nose. A lot of how this stuff comes to me and how I could synthesize this information is pure synchronicity and intuition. Some of it will real synchronicities, some of it will come on the internet, but it won't come just in numbers. It'll come in symbols. It'll come in a word sticking out to you in the reality, and the more you ask for them, the more that you start to tap in with certain synchronicities. Now, when I want to talk about, now these time codes or time locks are very interesting, because the time codes or time locks, I remember last year I had this vision where I was literally going to the fridge in my like dream or my vision, and I was pulling out a pulled pork, delicious fucking pulled pork sandwich. I was like, wow, this is like the best. And I just pulled it out the fridge, put it in the microwave, warmed it up, and I'm eating it, and I'm like, wow, this pulled pork sandwich is so fucking good. And then the mother showed me a timeline where I didn't pull it out. And then another timeline where I took a couple bites but didn't finish it. And so she was showing me like what happens, that these mundane things like drinking this water, choosing to drink it exactly at that moment, that could be an activation for my soul. And I don't even know it. And then the fun part is, see, this is how the language of synchronicities really plays with you. It's very playful. The language of synchronicities will, it's so cool because it'll be the most mundane thing. And it acts as a time lock. So when that event happens, it's like a certain energies align. So me eating that pulled pork sandwich, the whole thing, enjoying it and everything, certain energies in this vision, certain energies aligned, and I leveled up spiritually. But then like the one where I only ate half of it, I didn't get the full level up. And then the one where I didn't eat it at all, and I went for something healthy because I was trying to be healthy or whatever. I didn't do what I intuitively knew I should have done at that moment. I did something else that was against my nature at that moment. And Spirit was like, guess what? It doesn't matter. And I was like, well, why? Dang, I missed out on that great activation I was about to get. Spirit was like, it doesn't matter because you have infinite opportunities for activation, and you can choose, you know, any moment. It's like they're Easter eggs. Imagine the whole world is a big fucking Easter egg hunt, and every experience you have, no matter how mundane, unlocks a code. And then you open the egg up and there's a prize inside. So that's kind of like also synchronicities, an aspect of the language of time that nobody knows about, and that these elites, they know about because they know how to read the signs. Now, a lie in the Bible was that nobody would know the time or date or whatever. That was a lie because it was leaving out information. It was a lie by a mission of truth. So the truth is, because you don't read the time or the date, you read the signs. You read the synchronicities. Prophecy will talk about signs, certain frequencies and energies lining up. It doesn't talk about dates and times. Why do you think that is? Because the true language of time is synchronistic. Has absolutely nothing to do with numbers. Isn't this fucking crazy though? Like the mundane use of numbers. Numbers are better as codes. And like geometric shapes, meditating, working with certain geometric shapes will unlock structure and code. It's better as a form of structure and code, which is probably why we all get so bored with math. Math was explained as synchronicities, and you have the keys to the fucking universe. You motherfuckers I might have paid attention in math class. Shit. How come they haven't figured out how to regenerate their own? So that's exactly how, as I explained before, they can't regenerate it. They don't have emotion. Like, they don't experience emotion, because emotion is your doorway. Oh, they're so mad. I can feel them. I can feel them wanting to attack me, but I'm like, get the fuck out of here. But they don't experience emotion, and emotion is the gateway to the heart. That's why sometimes the only way that they'll ever know what emotion is through their host. They can't experience emotion. Now, that also gets into Dark City. Now, these Saturn beings, I call these Saturn hats. So you remember Smokey The bear, he had that round hat. You remember Pharrell at one point was wearing that, like that was like a big thing. Or Erykah Badu's worn it with the big brim, the black hat with the big brim. Certain celebrities, Beyonce has worn it. Her sister Solange has worn it. They're these Saturn hats. And in 1927, when I was talking about Archons, agents of Saturn, 1927, Metropolis, the strange man in all black, reminds me of the Slender Man stuff too, with a Saturn hat, and they have pointed ears. I don't know what the pointed ears thing is about, but they always have pointed ears. Even in Dark City, when we learn more about it, Dark City was mostly fictitious. It might have been a small experiment that took place, but Dark City is really telling you who the Archons are. And I'm going to get into some stuff that kind of like, when I watched it, my eyes got like real big. I was like, holy shit, this is like real life shit, because I've experienced some of this stuff. So Metropolis, we see a strange man who's told what to do by the man who's running the city. So we learn that Archons don't run the show. In the Gnostic texts, when the Archons come, they're still under Yaldabaoth, who would be Anu. Or he could be Anu or Enki. So these beings are still subjugated. I mean, they're looked at as disgusting. So even by higher beings, they look at them as disgusting and despicable beings, because they're completely parasitic and they're completely like artificial intelligence. So I said cities are often used in movies to symbolize an artificial construct, archonic influence, and artificial intelligence. Remember, our AI is completely archonic. This character is represented by Agent Smith in The Matrix, and Creatures in Black by the movie Dark City from 1998. In Dark City, we learn more about what these beings are. Still represented by the black hat with the wide brim Saturn hat and the oddly pointed ears. So this is like a thing. I'm like, whoa, these movies are... In Dark City, they were definitely given a shout out to Metropolis with the way that they did their art. For like, you know, the front cover of the movie, the way they did their art. So I said, what we learned about the beings in Dark City, about these beings, they share a collective mind. They have a power called tuning that allows them to manipulate, not create, manipulate reality. One thing I didn't put here is that they don't understand emotion, and when they get injected with human emotion, human memories, which create emotion within them, they tend to shortly die after. But they don't understand. Their whole thing is that they're looking for what the human soul is, I think, so that they can figure out how to create that within themselves. So they're trying to figure out what the human soul is so that they can recreate it for themselves. So that's supposed to give us, like, make us feel bad, but fuck out of here. Like, you can't keep feeding on us. Come fucking forward and just fucking talk to us. We're the masters of destinies. We might actually be able to fucking help you. We might be able to send you some energy. We might be able to send you back to source. We might be able to beg on your behalf, or petition the Great Mother to come and be merciful, which she's typically very merciful. Because she is us. We're all made from her. That's what I call the Great Mother source. To me, that's the same thing. So I said they have a power called tuning that allows them to manipulate reality. Like I said, manipulate. Tuning and toning are pretty much the same thing. They are running experiments on humans to learn about the human soul. When they take on the emotion of humans from their memories, they die shortly. And their whole thing, they would inject people in the pineal gland. They would do these injections into the pineal gland to make them forget stuff. So Ash Wednesday, when you're putting that little cross over your pineal gland, you're closing it down. So be very careful with what you're... These phones, honestly, they do affect the pineal gland to an extent. You should meditate after. And just... You can meditate right now, even with all these lights and shit in my face. I'll breathe and clear. My third eye is always open now. It's crazy. They manipulate memories and reality while people sleep, changing timelines. Might be Might be. Sharon, we'll talk about that after. There's been many wars fought in the heavens, so you might be tapping into a specific timeline where women warriors were fighting against them. These entities manipulate time, because with the movie Dark City, time was a big theme, and keep the secrets of time from humans. They have an aversion to water and sunlight. They are inhabited by these energetic spider-like creatures. Now, the Illuminati card game, right? They have glorps, which look just like these motherfuckers too. But a lot of the stuff in the Illuminati card game is purposely misleading. Because, I mean, these are the beings of the forked tongue. They speak in truths and lie, but they don't give you the truth. They give you code. And then it'll be one thing that'll be true within the whole code. So in here, these beings have, when the guy, he hit something with his mind because he learned how to tune, so he could use his psychic abilities now, and they couldn't make him fall asleep. That's what this whole thing is about. Like but he ended up being like a childlike god. So at the end, so it was just kind of like pointless. Like he didn't care about what happened to other people. He was only worried about himself. But he had the power to create reality. They only had the power to manipulate it. That was the difference between him and them. And they were terrified of him because they were like, oh my God, he's. And then something with the fingerprints. That they were looking at his fingerprints, and look, you can't even really see mine here good, but they were looking at, let's see, because you kind of see that one, right? Anyway, they were looking at his fingerprints, and something in them changed, and then that's how they knew that he changed. But my fingerprint has a single spiral on this one and a double spiral on this one on the left hand. I got like a little double spiral, like it's like 1, 2, and then it comes out this way and goes in this way, and this one is just a perfect spiral. So is this whole thing. So these Archons, when he cuts his head open by accident because he doesn't know yet about the power he has, he cuts one of the Archons' heads open, and this spider-like creature comes out, and it fucking freaks me out because Aurora Rising Phoenix, once again, I talked about her channel, she did a regression. That's what the Archons looked like in her regression. I like 2 days later, I did a session with a client, and then that's what they looked like. They were like these weird spider-like beings, and they would get into, you know, almost your whole, what is it, electrical? No, not your electrical system. Like your nervous system. Like it was real weird. And for one of my clients, they were over her heart chakra, and they were feeding on the energy of her inner child. They were literally trying to suck the energy out of her inner child. So we removed that. We removed reptilian implants. I mean, she's very powerful. She comes from a very powerful magical lineage. She didn't, you know, she didn't know this, but now she does. And we had a lot of work to do that day. So I removed a lot of stuff. Anyway, so I watched, let's see. And it was just weird to see this movie that I'm like, okay, I know that this is an Archon, or their depiction of what these Archons are. And then I'm watching a movie and it's a spider-like entity, and I'm just like, bro, this, like, what's in my mind, what I'm channeling is fucking real. Like, I don't know. There's certain moments in life that you're like I know it's real because I can feel it when I remove this stuff and when I help people and when I clear their energy bodies. Like, a lot of people have implants in the back of the neck, for example. Sometimes we put them there ourselves. It stops the flow of the Kundalini from reaching the crown and third eye. So, you know, remove your implants. It's an easy one to remove. But I'm like, yo, it's fucking real. I don't know. Certain things. It was just fucking crazy how it turned out in the movie like that, too. Let me see if I have anything else here. I talked about Moloch again, Enki and Enlil, our Anunnaki. Moloch seems to be interrelated to the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki... I said, okay, so how I broke it down was that Archons and reptilians seem to be employed, and not all reptilians are negative. Some of them are fighting back. It's a very small minority, but some of them are fighting back. But the Archons and reptilians seem to be lower gods or lower entities that are being employed by certain Anunnaki bloodlines. So we all get all people, you know, conspiracy, whatever, would talk about the, was there? Yes, there was a war. Well, Sharon, there was a war in the heavens for Earth. So the Anunnaki actually won the war. Well, it was really the Palladians, and then the Anunnaki came down from the Pallades. So it's something where certain Archons and reptilians are actually employed by these beings, and the reptilians do have their own bloodlines, but what we're dealing with now with the royal quote-unquote bloodlines are the mix of spirits telling me angel blood, but it's not like angel quote-unquote true angels. They're saying that people would call it like angel blood because it's basically just ETs, that their DNA and their blood is a little more concentrated. What we're dealing with now is not them, it's basically their kids. I feel like the reptilians are the only ones that are around a little more and dabble more often in this reality. There's still a couple, I'm feeling a couple negative Palladians still around, but the bloodlines with the most Palladian blood are at the top, not the reptilian ones. This is like a channel I'm getting as I'm speaking right now, because Spirit's like showing me boom, boom, boom. I'm like, okay, that's so interesting. So I said Anu, along with his children, Enki and Enlil, are descended from the Palladians. And the Palladians themselves, if you read books like that, I'm telling you, that book Earth, everybody needs to get it. Palladian Keys to the Living Library. Thank you, Spirit. They were like, boom, this is the title. But it's Earth, Palladian Keys to the Living Library. They even, like, in that book, because they're channeling from the Pallades, and the Palladians, like, admit that they fucked up by sending these, because these were their children, the Anunnaki. And they even admit that they fucked up by sending them here and not teaching them anything. And it was weird because in the movie Dark City, it was kind of like, even though this dude's fighting these Archons the whole time, like, he was completely selfish. Like, he didn't care about other people. So at the end, he uses all his powers for his own enjoyment and his own selfishness, just like how Enki and Enlil did. So I just was like, wow, that's fucking crazy. Well, Enki went more good. Enlil kind of like was still like, these humans are disgusting. But Enki was like, no, they're powerful beings and they deserve to know who they are. So he went more positive. So there's still a few of them here, and they're really the ones that are ruling, not, and it's their descendants are the ones that are ruling, not the reptilians. The reptilians are subservient to them. The reptilians fight for power with them sometimes, though. That's what I'm feeling right now. They fight with them for power. So sometimes they'll have fights within themselves. Yeah, I talked about the heart of gold. Okay, and then I talked about, too, that the entities... Right, as much as men on Earth don't value the feminine principle or women, these beings would literally fight for your women. So just think about that. You got motherfuckers coming from other fucking solar systems and shit fighting to be a consort, just a consort for your woman, and you don't value her energy. Think about that. True time. Okay, so this is where I talked about the pyramids, the stretching of the cord ceremony. Oh, and I have a star map here too. So when I... You know what? That movie Jupiter Ascending's really been coming up a lot for me too. Oh, first time. Yeah, I talked about first time. So spirals, like the spirals on our hands and stuff, like our you know, our thumbprints seem to be coming up a lot also. And in the Illuminati card game, they have a card that says every year is worse, and that's meant to make you feel like fear or whatever. But they put the Aztec calendar. Now the calendar that everyone was calling the Mayan calendar actually was the Aztec calendar. In the movie Dark City, there's a lot of references to the maze, and then we have Pan's Labyrinth, and there's just a lot of references to these mazes. being like a construct of time. And then in the middle is supposed to be where you meet source, or where you meet yourself, you know. That is a amazing smell. Wow, thank you, Spirit. That was just weird. It smelled so good. Okay, so, and I said the Illuminati card game has a card that says every year is worse, perverting the truth, talking about how the world is falling apart. Yet this calendar is placed here to inspire fear, which is ridiculous, so we don't discover the secrets of time. So they'll put the code right in front of you, but make you afraid of it, so that you can't discover the truth about it. So that's something to look out for. Now, I started reading up, like, and then you have David Bowie's Labyrinth. I remember seeing that when I was a kid. My cousin was into stuff like that, so I was into it too. I started thinking about this Labyrinth thing. And people had experienced, like, going, not without taking any psychedelics or anything, just walking through a labyrinth being something that was, it almost helped them, like, tune their frequency, and they really had, like, these big realizations once they got to the middle. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what if this labyrinth is literally, right, because rituals work with the subconscious mind. So if I'm walking through a labyrinth, oh, and then you have the game Mousetrap, that's like a labyrinth or a maze, and it's fucked up because you're the mouse and you're the one that's getting fat on cheese, and, like, you know, like you're just fucking, like, that's what you are. Like, you're just a mouse that just wants cheese. Like, you have no higher faculties, according to some of these individuals. So I started thinking about this labyrinth thing, and I was like, well, if this is a ritual, right, going actually physically into a labyrinth would rework the patterning of your brain, and it would help you to rework your subconscious mind, so that when you got to the middle, you were able to get to almost like, it's like getting to the pineal gland or the gateway to source. So you were able to get these realizations because you went through the work of harmonizing the left and right side of the brain, you know, hitting a dead end, having to turn around, trying something else. All this stuff is just reprogramming the subconscious mind. So I would say it could be a positive, but it could be used for a negative as well, because you can get to the center, and then the centers, it depends what kind of witches or wizards or people you're dealing with, because you can get to the center, or these fucking love and light new agers, you can get to the fucking center, and there might be a fucking demonic entity there that wants to that's trying to take over as many hosts as possible, and now it's next meal. And, like, you get to the center and you think that it's an angel of light, and the shit is really like a fucking entity that wants to feed on you. So, I mean, to each his own, but I can see how it's an actual ritual, and the sacredness of that is being kept from us as well. I said the patterns around the center are being the illusion, perhaps the false matrix, and our linear construct of time being an illusion. This was what I was thinking in regards to the labyrinth. I said when we reach the center, we find the truth, the oneness, the core of our being. That's maybe maybe an original part of it, but I could see the inversion of it as well. And that's part of being wise, is seeing what works in a positive way and what's actually going on in a negative way as well. Now, you guys saw the video. of the moon, didn't you? Where the moon literally disappeared. And lately, me and Bay were like seeing this red dot next to the moon, and we were like, yo, is the moon just being projected at this point? Like, is the moon there? So, and then the moon would come up at weird times of night. Like, it would just randomly pop up. So when we started noticing that, we were like, fuck, something weird is going on with the moon, because sometimes it would just disappear. Like literally disappear, and then just pop up, like, out of nowhere. And I'm like, I've never in my life, like, because the moon typically goes across the sky the way that the sun does. So how does it just fucking disappear and pop up like this? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Yeah, exactly, Joe. So I said the moon wasn't always here, it seems, and we just talked about that. In the book Earth, we're given a question from the Palladians. The moon influences the rhythms of Earth. This is literally what it says in the book. Who's to say it is not created? I said they also inform us that the moon transmits a feminine energy program, perhaps by beings who are seeking to control the feminine principle on Earth. They also disclose that the moon has been beaming electromagnetic frequencies onto Earth for eons now that maintain the two-strand DNA structure. So if we have the rings of Saturn disappearing, the rings of Saturn supposedly are supposed to be interconnected and feeding off of the 7 chakra system. So I don't know how accurate that is. That's something that I heard that we have to look into. It's funny because I stopped using that system. But I still, you know, for clients and stuff, I tell people to do what they feel is right, because I use that system for years. So just do whatever works for you. But I know how hard it is with the 7 chakra system to keep your energy, especially through the back of your spine, closed. That's how a lot of entities slip in. So I was always very mindful of that when using that system. I said the more I research the moon, the more the moon doesn't make any sense. First of all, our moon has more of a electromagnetic and a magnetic pull on the waters than most moons do. Jupiter actually has 12 moons. And I bet you they're not pulling on water there as much as our moon is actually pulling on water here. Also, recently NASA said that the moon is starting to rust. They were trying to say that it was like solar winds from Earth. They were like this form of hematite that's not supposed to be there because there's not supposed to be water on the moon. Well, maybe it's fucking a construct and it's been there for a long time, and artificial fucking constructs rust. That's what the fuck they do. It's not part of nature. Also, too, why have we never seen the dark side of the moon? Yeah, something to think about, because everything else rotates. The sun rotates, the other planets rotate, the moon just always is in the same spot and it doesn't rotate. Gotta think about that. And then we have the rings of Saturn disappearing. They're trying to push it to 300 years, but knowing what I know about time now, with the way our frequency, and they try to push things off into the far distance, to make us create linear time so that they can survive longer. These entities that can't survive in a higher dimensional frequency, they do stuff like that. They'll manipulate time, say that something will take this amount of time, but I'm like, I've been seeing the rings of Saturn disappearing for years now. And sometimes they'll disappear and sometimes they'll come back. But that's the Saturn, and this is funny too because I heard this today, that Saturn is connected in with the moon as a construct for this reality. So as much as we feel like it's not working, people are still, asleep, people are still this and that, no, it is working. Because if you look up in the sky, the moon's fucking randomly disappearing. Saturn's fucking rings are disintegrating. They're becoming thinner and thinner and thinner every year. And I think that way sooner than what science is trying to say, because they're trying to help these people elongate the amount of time that they're here, the rings of Saturn will be gone. Oh, also, too, might as well stop moon worshipping or doing your new moon rituals and stuff unless you feel connected in with it. I mean, we all know that on full moons the energy is high, and that's because if you think about it, when you do a full moon ritual, you know that everybody's energy is getting pulled out of their body, so there's more energy to work with. It's everybody else that's the magic. You're just the magician. So, I mean, you're magic too, obviously, as a practitioner of magic. So it's just kind of like, well, all this mana is just fucking floating around. I might as well do something with it. So, I mean, you know, you do what works for you in your practice. There's no judgment here. You know, do what you want to do. But I see no reason in... I wouldn't do it for the moon. I'd do it because the energy was high that day. Like, our energy's high, so everything's open, the veil's thin, I'm ready. Also, too, like I said, emotion and the feminine energy used to rule the waters of this planet. And men can have clothes. Okay, cool, we're almost done. This is perfect timing. Men can have feminine energy as well. So, definitely get into that information. Definitely get into your emotions. Get into feeling your emotions, even when they're fucking crazy. Usually when you feel fucking crazy, it's a reintegration. So get into your emotions. Enjoy them, feel them, love them, hate them, you know, whatever you want to do with them. Feel them, God damn it. It's your greatest gift. It adds so much energy to your magic. And then I got some stuff here with the hexagram or hexagon that's on the moon. And then I found this PNG where it says Resurrected Roman Empire 911 built within the cube Saturn cube worship, 8 points of time and space. Symbolism, the 8-pointed stars, and different names throughout history, Star of Ishtar, Seal of Melchizedek, etc. Also the serpent eating its tail. Also a candy wrapper. Like a candy wrapper. It looks kind of like that. So just interesting stuff. The as above, so below. Where the guys are holding each other's hands. That's actually it's creating a locked in construct. It's true, but like I say, they do a lot. They'll add the symbol in as an inversion of the truth. So you have to be very careful with where you're getting your information from. And just analyzing the frequency. So it's like, okay, as above, so below, but why the fuck do we have Saturn, like, something obviously representing Saturn right in the middle of it? I don't understand. And it's also representing duality. Okay, and then I started talking about, meanwhile, rings are acting as a control structure for false reality. Okay, I said perhaps, this was fun to think about. I said perhaps, I said imagine on Earth we managed to align ourselves perfectly with the divine. Perhaps the time code of the first time in the pyramids would be activated. When Earth and the stars were perfectly aligned, would become our reality. A harmonious, beautiful symphony. Could you imagine? I said, I also believe even some mundane aspects, yeah, this is when I was talking about mundane aspects of our life having codes within them. And then I talked about timeline jumping, which we already spoke on. See, that's why I write things down. Yeah, so that's basically it. I said, keepers of destiny. It is your destiny to be aware of this fascinating, groundbreaking information. You know what I mean? If you know what you are, then you know what you can do. So I hope that this gave you another piece of the puzzle, and that you're able to take some of this information and really work on the true nature of synchronization. Work deeper with your energy. I want all of you to be great. Every single one. I want every single one of you to be just your absolute best, and work on the true language of time, which is synchronicity, which works through destiny, with the destiny that you create fates for yourself. So, time is fluid. We're all done. Sorry for guys who came on late. I love you. And I'll check everybody out later. Peace.